Welcome to Sidebar, where I discuss topics I don't feel fit for a simple blog post. I wouldn't expect this to be a very common thing, as I don't want to step on anyone's toes, but the recent events regarding Transformers Universe made me decide to give something like this a shot. As you may well know, or maybe you don't, you found this video without reading my Twitter or visiting my site, it was announced on December 16th that Transformers Universe was shutting down, never to make it out of beta. For what was apparently promised to a lot of players, Transformers Universe was initially billed as an open-world mech MMO, and under development by RuneScape developer Jagex. Plans had promised that players would be able to create their own Transformers to use in-game and take part in the world and story. However, once Hasbro granted a license to create a Transformers-based game, word of the game slowed significantly, and later everything resurfaced in 2011 when Jagex announced the game would be a MOBA, and completely disregarded all the features that had so many players hyped in the first place. MOBA is not the right word I would have used to describe this game. The game was through and through an arena shooter. There were two teams of players, one side Autobots, one side Decepticons, each choosing a bot and heading out into the battlefield. Every bot could transform between a vehicle and a robot counterpart, making for some interesting chases and escapes. Bots took use of three damage types, Shield, Spark, and Omni, to damage opponents in a myriad of ways, and forcing you to strategize what the best way to finish off your opponent was. It had a rock, paper, scissors sort of mechanic that was fun to switch around on the fly and made reacting to your opponent's attacks and defenses quite interesting. Every attack even had a secondary S-Tech mode which will grant you alternate powers to your existing arsenal. Each Autobot also had an exact Decepticon counterpart and vice versa, so those claiming that one side was stronger than the other were clearly mistaken or just simply projecting. While PvP was at the core of the gameplay, there were PvE modes that people could do as well, including the open city used in the tutorial, which featured plenty of dynamic events. The city also featured portals to instance dungeons, for lack of a better word, where you'd make your way through a field of Terrorcons, repairing points, gathering Energon, and finally taking down a final boss. They were a refreshing change to the PvP gameplay and required a slight tweak to your normal strategies to succeed. I enjoyed the game quite a bit because once I wrapped my head around the mechanics, I was actually pretty damn good at it. My main was Drive-By, the Decepticon equivalent to the Autobot Overclock. Drive-By was a basic damage dealer, using rockets to blast through enemy shields and then burning down their health with a long-range laser. And if he ended up in close range, a pair of quick-hitting fists could take down even the toughest opponents. It was fun to use the laser's S-Tech to slow down escaping enemies, or getting into punching range of even the beefiest Autobots, and using that S-Tech to heal back most of his health, and obliterating that enemy with just a few more punches. And of course, he turned into a pretty sweet-looking car that fired a Gatling gun. When Nate and Kaizme joined the fray, we would completely wreck opposing teams with our setups. You know you're making a name for yourself when people start sending out-of-game threats like they were to Kaizme when he would so thoroughly trounce every opponent in the match. When I spoke about having people greatly looking forward to this game being reviewed as a full episode, these are exactly who I meant, and we're still not entirely over the fact that we're going to lose this game. However, there were things that were starting to worry me. While the original game modes had you waiting out in the hangar to repair instead of respawning, the mode was revamped to allow instant respawns upon each death, or allowing you to choose from your alternate bots. Unfortunately, that amazing change came with far more worrying stuff like cash op damage and defense boosters purchasable in rental amounts. While an original augment system existed in the form of simple drops that were restricted by level, this was a blatant and worrying inclusion of pay-to-win mechanics. Not that it wasn't bad enough that Founders Packs for the game went for $50 at the lowest and nearly $500 at the highest. Not putting your best foot forward doesn't even begin to describe it. People felt cheated. Compare this to something like Smite, where paying $30 in the closed beta unlocked and is continuing to unlock every new character they created for as long as the game lives. A lot of people who had hoped I would do a full review on this game said I could have used the video as a platform to show why games get shut down and the failures of a game as a cautionary tale for others. Unfortunately, I can't really make that call here. I can only speculate what happened and what I feel could have been done better. Personally, I think the game's biggest failure was in its marketing. Referring to the game as a MOBA was clearly nothing more than an attempt to cash in on the burgeoning genre's buzz. While considering what the acronym stands for, I previously suggested that could stand for many things, but invoking the idea of a Dota clone, this did not. There was plenty of confusion caused by the gameplay. Choosing an Autobot or Decepticon was technically cosmetic, but some players were convinced that one side was better than the other. This was compounded by the fact that equivalent bots were not only called different names in subtitles, instead of referring to them as an overarching class type, but also the fact that the names of the abilities were also different despite them being functionally the exact same attacks. New bots were inexplicably revealed to the community one at a time instead of in pairs, considering that they would be the exact same kind of character on both sides and released in pairs. It was around the announcement of something big is coming that people started to talk and worry, as no update was made for a month, then 2 months, then 3 months. This is why I said that there was trouble brewing. There is nothing more terrifying than a developer's silence on a title. Not seeing as much as an update, a news post, or even a tweet from a developer unless it's just random brief sales reminders, it's time to start taking notice and start worrying. And unfortunately, people were right to be concerned. Come December 16th was the update that everyone was expecting, but very few people actually wanted to see. I can't really say why this happened, but it reeks of executive meddling. Having to change the game's focus so drastically from the initial plan, trying to latch onto the MOBA boom with a game that played nothing like one, or having ridiculously high-priced Founders Packs and Cash Shop items just reeks of it. I've seen it all before. Sure, I can speculate, but I'm not here to be an HG12 manure spreader. I can talk about people's theories about how Hasbro killed off the property so the original bots wouldn't mess with their new toy line, or how some claim Jagex wanted to shift focus because it was taking away potential income from RuneScape. I don't know, I'm not sure we'll ever know, no one is talking, and I don't care. The game is gone and no amount of blame shifting is going to bring it back. That's the most tragic thing of all. We usually don't see games get cut before they ever make it out of beta, and I'm positive had the game been given a fair shake, and focused less on making up losses through inflated prices and sketchy tactics, and more on what made the game fun, it would have easily found an audience that players would have been willing to pay for without feeling like they should have. I can't foresee this getting rehosted or even revamped in some way. There's too much licensing behind it. It's a lost cause, and despite what some people might have personally felt about it, it's going to be shut down, and 2 weeks is all these players will have left. Here's to hoping that someone will at least pick up on the formula and make something special, and here's to hoping that Transformers fans finally get that game that they've been waiting for a long time.